We are celebrating the votive Mass of St. Joseph on this Wednesday in the abbey where I was for many years in France. It's now closed as an abbey, the Carthusian house in Célignac. We had a tradition of celebrating on a Wednesday the votive Mass of St. Joseph practically every week, and blessings would come. He is the practical saint, and he is more powerful than we think. He's hidden in the Gospel, but he must have been one of the greatest human beings ever to be entrusted with the Holy Family, when you think what that actually means. And also the intimacy that he would have had with the Holy Child is still his in glory, hence it is his power of intercession. The practical saint who looked after the Holy Family and was, in concrete terms, God's providence for them, hence providence too for our family needs. A good votive Mass for a family in their home. And I'd invite you also to place your home, or homes if there are more than one of you here, in the protection of St. Joseph. I've done it from the beginning with the Hermitage, and I light a little candle for him every Wednesday, and I never lack anything. Just remember that as a hint. Now, with regard to the material, we have another hint from the reading that we have had now. The way in which God corrects us. Has there ever been any son whose father did not train him? Of course, any punishment is most painful at the time and far from pleasant. But later, in those on whom it has been used, it bears fruit in peace and goodness. The divine pedagogy is actually fairly concrete. The essence of the being is the soul, and the soul gets contaminated by being attached to what is outside itself. And the quality of the interior life is severely damaged by bondage. Bondage to the material or to something happening or not happening. It is not free. So in his infinite wisdom, this painful and yet loving correction comes to us through what God allows to happen in his eternal and all-wise providence. We see it as something unpleasant, something unprogrammed, unwanted, happens or fails to happen and brings us immediate pain. A concrete example would be a person who loses either a marriage partner or a girlfriend-boyfriend. There is a huge amount of emotional suffering, and one is downcast in a very deep way. But the Lord is not absent from that atrocious moment for us, and one has at that point the choice of staying with the pain or of leaping up to where the Lord is proposing that one should go, because there is possible freedom from something which was holding us actually unknown to ourselves in bondage. We were dependent on something, someone outside ourselves, and God was not sufficient unto us. Many saints have had something of that nature. The many saints in marriage, like Rita of Cassia, have had painful situations. People who have lost all and then didn't stay down have then got up and done great things for the Lord in a newfound freedom. Another way in which we damage our soul is by an invisible attachment. They're not to material or even to another human being, but to our own ideas, e.g., something that we are fairly keen on having shared by everyone around us. And to make sure that that happens, much energy is expended and much peace is lost. Now, many people actually go through life in that mode, and they are their own worst enemy. Indeed, in this very reading, we have this invitation from the writer of this epistle to the Hebrews to be at peace. Always be wanting peace with all people, and the holiness without which no one can ever see the Lord. Now, if one abdicates, firstly over the material and our authority over it, and over even other people being there, not being there, being for us, not being for us, effectively, and secondly, over what we think ought to be thought by everyone around us, then there is some chance that we will avoid two major sources of unpeace during our short innings here on earth. It's worth remembering that before getting into an argument. It's worth remembering that before getting down because things aren't as we have preferred that they should be. We are not God. And the great secret is our truth. Self-knowledge is a great liberating factor and a point of departure for flight. To acknowledge that the creature is just that, creatus, made from nothing, with no right therefore. And therefore God and occasions which serve God have full freedom, and we're not changed because we're anchored in the divine will, which brings me to where I want to land. He sees further. Now, if we can somehow avoid the damage of our state by hovering on that plane, looking at events, looking at the world with the vision that is observing it from on high, then we are much freer than if we have that limited vision, which is myopia itself. We only see what interests us and what we think is good for us. Now, we have actually in the English language one of the greatest mystics of this element of providence, Julian of Norwich, who was given this divine intuition in Revelation very early on, which has therefore been in the English language from the 14th century, that all is actually guided. Now, if we can somehow see that, it does free us then from identifying tragedy with the event. And her writing is so simple, it's all just old, simple English monosyllables. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of thing shall be well. And she was given to understand what that word from the Lord meant. It's that nothing happens to us without an eternal and divine permission. And it's happening for our good if we let it have its effect. God writes straight with crooked lines. So let us ask for that grace under the protection of St. Joseph today, not to mess up our innings by reigning where we have no authority, by abstaining from demanding where we have no mandate to command. Then, at last, perhaps, we'll experience the repose of acceptance rather than command. Regina Mater Misericordiae, vita dulcedo et spes nostra salve, a te clamamus, exules Spiriei, a te suspiramus, gementes et flentes, in ac lacrimarum vale, ea ergo advocata nostra,
y nos tuos misericordias oculos, ad nos converti. Et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende.